Like most working moms, Marcy Harmon can balance. But because she works full-time in a pool, helping her kids with e-learning is something she can't float.
I can't just stop my day.
It's one of the reasons she's okay with the new limits on the number of e-learning days schools can use.
I just can't imagine getting called for a snow day and having to do virtual learning.
House Bill 1093, which was passed and signed by the governor last month, says schools can't use more than 3 virtual student instruction days in a school year. And 50% of those days have to be teacher-directed synchronous instruction.
I think it's a bigger question than most people probably think about. They think, should we have virtual learning? Is that quality learning, or should we not? And I think there's a lot of other things that people have to consider.
Sarah Hickel is the assistant superintendent for School City Mishawaka. Hickel, like other administrators across our area, has some questions about how this law will impact schools and families.
I anticipate we're going to have to make an amendment to the calendar that we had already adopted.
Traditionally, Mishawaka builds 2 or 3 pre-planned e-learning days into the school calendar. For example, on election days, when the public is voting inside area schools, students are learning from home. With this new law, this could mean that when the weather is bad, schools will have to close instead of opting for an e-learning day.
If not, if it really is the 3 days regardless, then schools like us will have to make a choice. Do you take out those planned e-learning days and save them only for inclement weather? Or do you keep the planned e-learning days because you know where they're going to fall and you can plan accordingly and you can really maximize the learning for students? And then when you get inclement weather, it has to be a closure.
South Bend also builds pre-planned e-learning days into its school year. Districts like South Bend and Mishawaka will likely have to add days onto the end of the school year if schools have to close for inclement weather.
Yes, we know that face-to-face instruction is the best, but we also know going into mid-June is also quite challenging as well. And so we want to make sure that we're using a well thought out calendar and also using both e-learning days and make-up snow days in the best way possible.
School administrators argue that while virtual learning isn't nearly as effective as being in the classroom, it is still better than no school at all, especially at crucial points in the school year.
There's a lot of factors that come into it. If you do makeup days, they tend to go on the end of the year, which is significantly after state testing. So having an e-learning day prior to state testing has a greater value than having a day at the end of the year that, the same learning wouldn't necessarily happen.
School leaders hope new guidance from the Department of Education will give more insight into how to build their school calendars for the future.
I would like to see a little bit of leniency.